Hi everyone, it's your girl, Dr. Tommy, better known as Ama Aba. So welcome to the Wellness and Wahala podcast. I give you great public health wellness tips. Also, if you're tuning in for the first time, Wahala in Nigerian Pidgin English means issues and problems. And today I have a very special guest on the show, y'all. So he is Big Mo, the director of Sound City Radio, a big old guy at the top. And we are going to be discussing the COVID-19 Wahala as it relates to our people back in Abuja, Nigeria, and the effects of media and music and how that plays a part during this COVID-19 Wahala. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Tommy.
Thank you. I am extremely honored. So please, for those people here in the diaspora, I know you're very known back in Nigeria and across Africa, but please, for our listeners here in diaspora, give us a brief summary of who you be.
Okay. My name is Moses Mwokedi, better known as Big Mo. I'm a radio broadcaster. I'm an advocate for several issues, corruption, anti-corruption to be precise, maternal health, environment, sanitation, personal hygiene, and the list goes on and on. I'm also an actor, and I'm also an event compare.
Yes, so.
Likewise, also a voiceover artist as well, since I do radio. Most persons don't know that.
Yes, because I've seen you in some Nollywood movies. I said, is that Big Mo? So congrats on a lot of your ventures and doing a lot of big things. And I'm happy even Nollywood is getting on a lot of global platforms. So now that even this pandemic day there, you have a lot of Nollywood movies on Netflix and on YouTube. So if you have access to technology, people can easily access Nollywood movies, that were hard to access, over a decade ago. So big ups to you guys doing a great job. So wait till they happen in Abuja. We hear some things and stories here in the diaspora, from the media, but we don't know if, it's really, what is going on the ground. So what is the real deal? What are the challenges that you're hearing, and, what are some of the stories that you're covering during this Wahala period and pandemic?
To start off with, I think a major issue people are facing is they are not prepared. They were not and are still not prepared for the crisis. And the government preparedness towards this was more or less low, in the sense that even with the palliatives being administered or activated in some cases now, we're yet to actually see a reasonable feedback to attest that yes, the so-called palliatives are actually working. Most persons, due to this, have decided to disobey the stay-at-home order. You find several persons coming out of their homes, moving around, trying to get one or two things together in terms of feeding their family and the likes. And I think towards that direction, government deemed it fit and said the best thing is to ease the lockdown. And for some funny reason, I think easing the lockdown kind of skyrocketed the numbers. The numbers on the daily that we get concerning persons testing positive for COVID-19 now in Nigeria is astronomical, in the sense that I think we're just about 8,000 plus. We have not hit 2,000 or so. And the instant they eased the lockdown, the numbers were just skyrocketing like no man's business.
Yes.
Aside that, people have returned to their livelihoods. They move around at will. you see traffic off here and there. There's a lockdown on interstate traveling. People still travel from neighboring states into Abuja, and it just makes me wonder what is happening. Government has said those that those that work in Abuja and stay outside Abuja that do not have essential jobs, let's say like medical personnel or media personnel or security personnel, stay back home. For those that work within the government parastatals, agencies and ministries from level 1 to 12 should stay back home, while level 13 upwards should resume work with safety hygiene being maintained at the offices.
Okay.
But even at that, people are out on the streets, bike men out on the streets. We have influx of several funny-looking face masks that would only just cover their mouths and not get to the nose. Some that will just cover just the nose and not cover the mouth. People are trying to adjust, but are not yet understood that COVID-19 is real.
Yes. So do you think communication is a problem at the federal, state, and local level? I know some states are doing a little bit better than others, but like in some states like Kanu, the cases are extremely high. So what are those, states doing in the states that the cases are lower that, we can learn from? And other countries, other partner countries, so other African countries have lower cases. A good case is Madagascar, for example. The president of Madagascar came up with his own herbal remedy. And right now they have 0 deaths, 0 mortality rates. And other African countries have even bought into this herbal remedy and now trying to depend on the West. So, I know people are thinking about, the vaccine, but, I say, prevention is better than vaccine, and definitely a cure is better than a vaccine. If you can find a remedy locally, we are blessed with a lot of natural agricultural resources and remedies. Why can't we, study and look at what our other African scientists and other countries are doing that have lower rates? So right now, as of yesterday, WHO says the total confirmed cases in Nigeria is 4,971. And new cases, as you said, is rising, to 184, daily. So what can we learn from other states that are doing pretty well in testing and contact tracing and, just like you said, protective, personal protective equipment? People are just wearing whatever mask they have available, because even the certified masks that are more protective, and even training people, as a form of communication. That's why I said the power of radio and your communication platforms like Sound City are extremely efficient and effective at this time. What are the communication strategies that we can use to make sure that we reach the people the most that need that information?
To start off with, most media outlets, in terms of traditional media, radio, TV, and even new media, social media, and print media, have all, to some reasonable extent, kept pushing the narrative on the essentiality of staying safe and usage of nose mask. The funny thing there is most persons cannot afford the surgical nose mask, the approved one, due to the price. The costs skyrocketed. Like, I still went to a pharmacy yesterday. Is it N95 nose mask?
Yes.
It goes for about 4,650 naira per one.
And for those of you guys in the diaspora, that's like $15. Though I think the exchange rate, is like 300, 400 now. But like between $10 and $15 for one mask, that makes no sense. While as, regularly the price for N95 for a pack of, I think 10, goes for less than that. That's for a 10 pack, not to talk about one. So that is extremely high, so who can really afford it if it's not like the big boys and politicians and the rich people?
Yeah.
Right.
And even at that, there are still some fake N95s.
Yeah, of course. On the market. So that's another thing that a lot of people are not talking about are, the fake supplies, protective equipment that are out there and masks that people are selling. Even when they say you can make them at home, there's certain, safety guidelines that should be followed. It's not every mask.
Okay.
Yeah.
At some point, I didn't hear you.
Hello.
Thank God for Nigerian network.
Nigerian.
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you.
I said some people don't know the safety guidelines of masks and knowing, that not all masks are effective, that that they're fake. So, I think it goes back once again to, how we communicate and let people know, and some people, might rebuttal and say, oh, well, something is better than nothing, even if it's not the right one, even if it's fake, but at least they're trying to cover themselves. Like, that's what they can afford, so, that's what they can do. But what are other challenges that you see that are on ground besides that?
Hunger.
Oh, yeah.
Hunger. Why did I repeat hunger repeatedly? Most offices cannot afford to keep their staff. Mm-hmm. I know of a certain restaurant that the instant the lockdown was instituted, they had to shut down and let go of its staff because they were unable to sell. They were operating a seating restaurant and partly delivery format. But even with the lockdown, most persons did not have the funds to actually afford delivery because when you buy, let's say, a meal worth 3,000 naira, you have to pay for delivery, which will cost us about 1,000 or 1,500, depending on the distance of where you stay.
Right.
Moving away from that, some offices that are still able to keep their staff cut down their pay by either 30%, some by 40%, some by 15%, some by 20%. And now a staff who normally would have been going home with, let's say, maybe a 70,000 pay package or 100,000 pay package, now has to readjust by almost a half of what they're used to, either feeding pattern or extra luxury which they toss in, because we are all human beings. No matter how small the salary is, we tend to want to enjoy some level of luxury, probably having a bottle of drink or hanging out at the beer parlor or something of that nature. But all that now is taking a different toll. Mm-hmm. Presently, with the lockdown being eased, banks are having it tough because it's a problem to control the number of persons going to the banks on a daily. This happened since last week because the ease of lockdown happened last week Monday. Right. And banks have been experiencing this heavy influx of customers to the point that it becomes a problem. Oof. They can't maintain social distance outside the banking premises. The bank has to let them come in one after the other, probably in sets of 10 or in sets of 5 or in sets of 20, depends on the capacity they have to keep them before they get into the banking hall proper. And it's just been crazy. There are several videos up on Instagram.
Yeah, Twitter, I saw packed out.
Of people fighting to get into the bank.
Yeah.
Why did that happen? Because some persons have the feeling that some banks will not be able to survive and their money will be stuck in the banking system. Some just want to clear out their accounts. Some have either issues with their banking app and they need that sorted out. Some have issues with their ATM cards and they need that sorted out because they cannot sort that out online.
Right.
With the banking services. So all of this just mobbles up. Also, transportation has been cut down a whole lot. Religious bodies cannot operate because of the social distancing law. Likewise, nightlife, like clubs and the likes of that. It's been crazy.
Yes.
There was a point in.
But on that note, for the religious organizations, so I think it was in the news recently this week that Pastor Bakare donated 2 of his church buildings in Lagos for quarantine units to Lagos State Ministry of Health. Now, with all the challenges that we are in our community, we need to go back to our roots. So everybody cannot depend on government. Government is quite limited. And, me being a former diplomat and just working in the government, there's a lot of bureaucracies and challenges. If you're just going to rely on the government, it takes a village, as everybody say. We are Africans. Everybody has to do their part. And, I have to be real. I'm quite disappointed in our religious institutions. We have huge churches. We have huge mosques that can play a part in helping relieve a lot of these challenges. You just mentioned a lot of them. Hunger, from people's livelihoods to being cut. What happened? So I'll give you an example. The church that I attend here in the U.S. in Atlanta, me and my daughter, we volunteer twice a week, but they have a food bank Monday through Friday, and we pack food, and we have packed over 10,000 meals. I think we're going to 12,000 this week since the beginning of this pandemic, because we noticed that in our church, many people have lost their jobs, and even in the community that that our church is at. So people don't even have to be a member of our church, but we know that there are some places that have people that have been victims of sex trafficking, people that are homeless and that they're living in shelters. And we actually, made a partnership with those homeless shelters and those places that are in need and people that are in need. And we drop it off, so we still maintain the rules of social distancing and everything. But we pack the lunches. Somebody volunteers to transport, all of the lunches that we pack. We pack about 250 to 300 a day. And it is very rare. You know what I'm saying? This is where, at least I know, this is where my Tyson offering is going to. So I talked to my other friends that are at other churches. They're like, what? They're like, oh yeah, we heard about food bank, once a month. I said, no, people are hungry. Do you eat once a month? Don't people eat daily? Do you understand? So I said, so what are we doing to help people in our community? So, what happened to all the Tyson offering? And when they're talking about churches closed, no, church is always open. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. You can fellowship at home with, we're going back old school. God's like, look, you can fellowship in your car. You can fellowship anywhere you are. You can be in the shower and you can be praying and praising God. But faith without works is dead. What is the religious community doing to alleviate a lot of the wahalas that people are facing? So this is going to be a big banger for a lot of churches. They're going to lose a lot of people, and they're going to start going to churches that, my whole thing is, did you have my back when I was in a crisis? You know what I'm saying? So, big ups to Pastor Bakare. They say, okay, I'm going to donate my church. There's not enough hospitals. The hospitals are being, overfilled. They need more buildings and stuff. Donate your church building. If your church building is closed, that doesn't mean that they can't use it for other things. You know what I'm saying? So if it's not food, if it's not, protective personal equipment, these churches have ways where they can ship, a lot of these equipment. They got the money. If you got personal jets, let's not talk about that, pastors that have private jets. So you know how to courier yourself, but now that there's a restriction, you know how to make things work. What is the religious community? So, our people always blame the governments for not doing their part. But what are the other, organizations? Have you heard of any other community organizations, whether churches, whether YMCA? What are other people doing in the community to help people in need? How are we being our brother's keeper? You understand?
I think aside from Pastor Tunde Bakare's church, I think churches like Dunamis, churches like I think COSA and House of God, inclusive of the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church organization, I think they gave the government all their hospitals to use as isolation centers.
Nice.
And the other churches that I might not recall for now, for aside churches now, lots of persons that have foundations here and there have taken it upon themselves to understand that if we do not help our community, we will be the... What do I mean by that?
Yeah.
If you don't feed the hungry person that is beside you, the hungry person might be prompted to either for a way of getting what he or she will feed on from you in a forceful way.
Exactly. So by force, by fire, it go happen. Do you understand? A hungry man, as they say, is an angry man. You understand? So, and when you're hungry and your children, do you understand? If me as a mom, if my child is hungry, I'm going to do what I need to do. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, people become, in survival mode. So sometimes, it might be increased violence. People start, robbing. So you see that in some communities, like, look, I got to survive, or you see some people got to prostitute themselves and like, look, okay, well, I got to do what I got to do, to make sure I get some money so I can feed my family. I mean, it should not get that bad, but unfortunately it is. And people are not talking about, the traumas that people are facing. And, a lot of people are going to need a lot of mental and psychosocial support, because of this pandemic and a lot of the trials that people are facing. Because I really think that it's good that, the Catholic Church and other people are stepping up. Catholic Church has always, for a very long time, has done their parts. But if you look at these new modern day churches, I have to be quite disappointed. I'm not going to call their names out, but I know a lot of the big ones in Nigeria that are not really doing anything. But I see them on Facebook and social media every day. Please, this is our tithe. This is our bank account number. They'll do some live streaming, preaching, and they'll say, oh, please donate. I never hear them say, oh, this week, we're raising funds to help these many people in our congregation that have lost a job. I have not seen one posting like that yet, though. Walai. So, and I follow some of these preachings, these preachers, these major ones online on social media. And I'm like, okay, you quick to pray and say, okay, all will be well. And here's my account number. Y'all can send y'all tithes and offering. But, that's it. So, just like you said, it takes all of us to do our part in the community. And if, it's not affecting you now, it will affect you, indirectly later.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My own challenge actually isn't about the now, it's about the later. In the sense of when we get to the point when normalcy starts to trickle into the society again, when government lifts the lockdown entirely, when we don't have cases of COVID-19, or probably when the number of cases are dropping drastically. By then, it will be obvious of the number of persons who have been locked within their place of abode, their homes or their streets or their locations where they either took home, because some persons got stuck when they traveled for one thing or the other,
right,
when the lockdown was instituted.
Right.
After the list of lockdown in its entirety, we'll begin to see the number of persons that don't have jobs. There are some banks that actually closed down entirely a good number of their branches. Take, for example, Access Bank.
Yep.
Shut down some of their branches. And I did my research and found out Access Bank took over Diamond Bank. And after taking over Diamond Bank, they had several, it's like as if they duplicated their branches. You could come probably to a street and have about 2 Access Bank branches, which was formerly Access, then a Diamond.
A Diamond. Okay.
Merger.
Okay.
We have access to Access Banks in one area. So it's understandable what's happening within this period is funny. It's funny to the point whereby a good number of personnel would not be able to work.
Right.
The ones working, their salaries will be cut.
Right.
In order for the bank to survive. Going back to your question on what people can do is try as much as possible to stay safe.
Right.
Personal hygiene has been a problem. The health sector decay is so much that it is now hitting us in the face. Mm-hmm. It's no longer a case of only poor man they go hospital. the rich man not be travel go foreign again.
Hey,
for health care.
That's not key point though. Look, Big Mo. Let's rewind. That one now hot fire. That all these big guys with private jets, even our president, is such a disgrace. Look, diplomatically, it's a big disgrace when your president of your nation gets sick and they don't get treated in the hospital facility in their nation. You would never see an Obama, the Queen, the Prime Minister of another top nation go to another nation for treatment. It's not possible. Do you understand?
Yeah.
It's against our foreign policy. And they're proud to go abroad, you know what I'm saying, to get treatment. So now they have to sleep in their mess that they made. Do you understand? All your children, you're sending your children abroad. You can't send your children abroad to school anymore. Look, when I was in doing my doctorate and even in the School of Public Health, and I met some other doctors, both doctors, my cardiologist, because I had heart issues when I was in college, and the cardiologist that was treating me, that worked in the hospital at the University of Chicago with my mom, he now said, he said, "You're Nigerian?" He was like, "I love Nigeria." He was like, back in the days, I did my residency. He said he went to school in Jos. He said Nigeria had one of the best exchange medical professions and institute, that they send researchers and doctors to Nigeria to get trained. Can you imagine? I said, "Are you sure it's Nigeria? What do you mean Jos?" He said, "Jos, Plateau State." I said, So then my mom now, me being born here, so I didn't really understand. I said, "Mommy," I said, "what do you mean?" She said, "No, Nigeria has went backwards." That when she was growing up, and in the 70s and 80s, I mean, you see UI, Ahmadi Bello University, a lot of these top universities used to have Oimbos come. And now everything is locked down. So I think you just made a key point that, is extremely, we should not overlook it, that post-pandemic is key in our planning. We need to improve our healthcare system. We need to improve our education system. We need to, improve our communication system. We need to improve, sustainable livelihoods and what we call our welfare system. So when a whole bunch of people loses their jobs, the economy is crashing, the Naira is devaluing, what can we do to ensure that we mitigate, a lot of this risk, disaster risk reduction strategies? We don't have a DRR strategy for Nigeria and Africa. And a lot of people, what people don't know is that how I met Big Mo, I was working for an international organization, advocating for smallholder farmers. And he's a great ambassador also for smallholder farmers and agriculture and food security. A lot of our farmers are being affected now. They cannot farm. That means that we're going to have a lot of food insecurity in the future.
Yeah. That
people don't understand. We're going to have a lot of food insecurity. So what can we do, to mitigate a lot of those risks? Our people are not thinking about that. And that is key, so what do you also, recommend? Because I think people are just thinking about the now. They don't know that there's going to be a lot of traumatic stress after this pandemic.
Yeah. In that light, is to educate farmers on how to possibly farm in the best hygienic way. Though going to the farm and trying to stay neat and maintaining hygiene is a bit difficult because you mess around with the soil and you don't know what exactly is inside the soil.
Right.
That's where mechanization comes into play. Aside that, there has been, before now, farmers have been experiencing herdsmen attack, who, to a great extent, caused farmers not to go to their farms because they had the fear that once they go to their farms, whilst on their farms, that this herdsmen could attack them and possibly they could lose their life or be kidnapped. And if they are unable to pay a certain ransom, then the herdsmen might kill them or release them after several weeks or months of torture.
Yep.
For for Nigeria to move ahead and possibly avoid the food pandemic, food scarcity that might hit us. Right now, it's not so clear because we are all caught up in COVID-19 issues, is to encourage each household that has a small space, a farmable small portion. If they don't have that, they could actually get pots, planting pots or planting boxes.
Exactly.
And start planting things as little as tomatoes,
yes,
as little as pepper.
Yes.
No, basic things that the home needs.
Yes.
We need to educate people to start doing this because the farmers cannot meet up with the demand that will hit us in the shortest time.
No.
Cost of food is skyrocketing on a daily.
Yep.
Literally.
Even here. Even here.
Yes, I watched the NBC and I noticed that cost of food is on a high.
Is it higher?
About 30%. I think about close to 30%.
It's even higher for organic foods. All these fruits and vegetables here. You know, in Nigeria, we're blessed with organic foods and farmers fresh fruit. If you go to organic, food market here, the price has increased to like 60-70%. If you get lucky, you can find, a local farmers market. That happens about, I think like in my community, the local farmers market happened before this pandemic twice a week, Tuesdays and Friday, but they have not been having it. So if I go to the regular grocery store and try to buy organic, vegetables versus, the chemical, GMO ones, I'm going to be paying way more. I pay way more. I'm paying double, triple the price. So, you gave a lot of good tips. Like we need to go back in the days where, we have our own family farms in our own homes. People grow their tomato, their onion, and even like preservation. So some of our farmers even have the preservation members of, drying the pepper, drying the potatoes, drying it and storing it for a longer time. So even, post-harvest season, the crops will still be able to use and they will not spoil because they will dry it. They have a way of preserving it. And we have, technologies that can help us and expedite that process. So, agriculture is key. And I think that if we do it in a good way in Africa, a lot of other countries will be begging us because this food insecurity is not just going to affect, Nigeria. It's affecting all of us all over the world. But if we position ourselves right in Africa, we have the most natural resources. We have the most, the most land that is uncultivated in Africa. About 55% of the land is still uncultivated. So, and the ones, that are cultivated, we need to be able to grow. And even if it's in your house and starting from that. But then if we now start having a storage system and start storing and preserving a lot of the food, we can now start selling it and help build back our economy. Agriculture was the main way that we made money before oil. And people need to know that, agriculture, food security is key. After any pandemic, if anybody studied any of the past public health pandemics in the past, food security and livelihoods, people losing their jobs, was a big thing after any pandemic or after any type of natural disaster. So, we need to really pay attention to, the food security or insecurity. And you already see the high rising prices. But a lot of people are not paying attention to agriculture and food security. So I really hope that we now start coming up with some type of plan. And we go old school of, how we need to start planting even in our homes. But thank you, for being on the show today. I know you're very busy, so thank you for taking your time out with us. And I want people, the call of action. I think, you're just a brilliant, guy and actor and radio host and MC. And, you just have a lot of knowledge in so many areas. And that's why you're ambassadors to so many great causes, humanitarian causes, agriculture causes. So how can people follow you? How can people contact you if they need to collaborate with you? Because I think that there's going to be a lot of collaborations needed and partnerships with people like you going forward, especially post-pandemic. So how can they follow you on social media and, the best way?
On all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, everything is up. LinkedIn is same. Big Mo Naija.
Okay. Big Mo Naija. So that's BIGMONAIJA. Big Mo Naija. So please follow. Please like his posts. Contact him. Holler at him. He's a great wealth of experience. And I'm going to leave you all with the African proverb of the week, which is from Uganda, that says the only thing to do with good advice is to pass it on. So thank you so much for passing on your great knowledge and wisdom and giving us great tips on how to avoid a lot of wahala during and post-pandemic of this wahala, COVID-19. Thank you. Bless up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye.